Hello, I'm Tom Parker and welcome to Voices from the CEPS Ideas Lab. In this episode, I spoke with David Zilbermann. David holds the Robertson Chair in the Agricultural and Resource Economics Department at UC Berkeley. He received the 2019 Wolf Prize in Agriculture and was elected a US National Academy of Science 2019 member. During our interview, we discussed how Europe's industrial strategy can better integrate agricultural innovation and sustainability to become more competitive with global peers. I hope you enjoy the episode. Well, hi David, welcome. Pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Tom, for inviting me.
Well, great. I want to get stuck into this really quite big topic. And I'm going to start by asking, how can Europe's industrial strategy better integrate agricultural innovation and sustainability?
You see, my feeling is that today, with the new development with biology, the development of gene editing, the development of a lot of mechanism of fermentation, industry and agriculture are merging. Agriculture is not only producing food, it's producing a lot of feedstock that can be used for agriculture. If you look at some of the big European companies like Novo, they are basically into enzyme. A lot of the strengths of Europe start with food and agriculture.
Yeah.
So to some extent, building on these strengths, I think is quite natural. I think agriculture, the bioeconomy, can emphasize, develop new ways to produce pharmaceuticals, that basically to farm pharmaceutical from using greenhouses and using a lot of other agricultural systems to produce chemical and pharmaceutical. Basically, chemicals are the most effective means that you have to convert chemicals from one use to another. And the more that you understand how genetic modify organisms and modify chemicals, you can develop mechanisms that you can produce a lot of products very cheaply. So to me, developing a bioeconomy in Europe that will have biomanufacturing, that will recycle waste products, that will produce biofuel, can be really crucial. First of all, to develop industries in rural community, to enhance energy independence. And another dimension, agriculture and agricultural and forestry products can be used for sequestration. Still, photosynthesis is one process that takes carbon and produce some other stuff. So you can use it. You can start building houses out of wood. So you can replace cement and concrete and even steel a lot of time with wood products. So to me, being aware about the potential of agriculture can be very, very important. The other good thing is that, in my view, Europe has an incredible rich tradition of agriculture and a very sophisticated agricultural industry. And I don't mean producing wheat and barley. I mean producing wine and producing a lot of sophisticated livestock. And England, unfortunately, is not in the EU, but England is still part of Europe.
Sure.
England, historically, was an incredibly strong country with terms of biology, and now they are very big. Take all the capacity of Europe in terms of research and basically commercialize it and use it to develop an industry that combine agricultural resources with production. I thought about it. What are the things when people think about Europe today? What do they think? They mostly think about Gucci and leather product and luxury stuff. That is basically based on agriculture.
Yeah.
So to some extent, it's not to reinvent to invent something, it's to take advantage of the resources that you have and build on them.
Well, I was going to say, because my original question was, how can we better integrate innovation? Do you think Europe's actually doing well? Do you think we're doing poorly, or do you just think there's only a small percentage increase?
No. My feeling is this: that Europe, on one hand, in some areas are doing extremely well. If you look at industries that are model, the Italian cheese, the French wine, now it's not so good, doing well, but the agricultural-based industry are very strong in Europe. However, they don't go out of the traditional product to new product. And one of the main reasons, in my view, is that Europe has this crazy anti-GMO and precautionary principles. To some extent, if you look at Europe today, Europe basically, to me, is a continent of people that are anti-vaxxer. They don't believe in GMOs. They don't believe in science. They invented this science. So to some extent, it's really difficult because the way that the democracy works and the EU works is such that you cannot use all this modern knowledge in biology and life science to get more out of agriculture. So what really is happening, I give you one little example.
Please.
There is a product called black soldier fly. It's an insect that basically it may consume, let's say, animal waste or some other waste, and then the larvae is full of protein and it's clean protein.
Okay.
Now, some European, it was discovered by people in Europe and the US, okay? Now, both in Europe and the US, it's not pushed very well because the regulatory systems are extremely crazy.
Okay.
In China, it's moving very fast. Now, why? See, I work with someone in Texas, okay? And in Texas, they can use only food that hasn't been consumed. The residue of the bread that hasn't been sold. In China, they could consume all the amount of food, so you cannot scale it up.
Yeah.
So the guy that started the technology is now helping someone in China to build the technology. The person in Holland that is the father of the technology don't even have a company. So to some extent, you have all this incredible knowledge in the life science that is moving elsewhere. And that to me is typical. There are so much potential in the bioeconomy. And now what happened, because of the regulatory essence, then what happened, no one wants to invest in it because you don't know if you'll get a license. And moreover, if no one wants to invest in it, the universities don't invest in research and we have less and less people that study it. Now, I am in Berkeley, which is a good university, and one of the things that drives me crazy is that the environmental science and all the environmental and agricultural research is more about what are the negative side of agricultural practice than about what are the positive. What can you do with it? I called our program, our research program, I called the Big Pondom, that try to prevent anything from happening rather than say, okay, we have this technology, we may need to take some risk, we need to modify them, but let's think about making a change for the betterment of human race. And that to me is the biggest problem, that especially in Europe.
Well, you used a great example there about how China is doing something better. There's a different regulatory setup, there's a different demand when it comes to a particular product. Are there other regions globally that are doing particularly well at balancing industrial growth with, say, environmental protection and resource management that the EU could learn from?
My feeling is this, every region, I give you the Argentina. Argentina, it's a screwed up country in general. If you go up to Argentina and you go on the sidewalk, there is about 50% chance that you will fall because things don't work. But the Argentinian agriculture is top notch, and they use GMO. And believe me, the fact that they use all these genetic engineered products and produce soybean and wheat is of incredible global importance because the GMO produced soybean in Argentina was able to meet the growing Chinese demand without affecting prices very much. So Argentina has a very strong agricultural sector that took advantage of a lot of the new technologies as move to double cropping, increase yield, feed the world, and I think this is quite a success story. Think about it. Today, Brazil, Argentina, and the US are feeding much of the world. People say, oh, they only feed people with soybean and corn, but that's what everyone needs. If you want to have chicken and pork and beef, you need soybean and corn. And then if you look at a country like China, they depend on on these countries. So to some extent, you can really see Argentina and Brazil. Altogether, I think that China is and everything is moving ahead. I think the U.S. regulations are quite, in my view, quite excessive, but still they take advantage of some of the capacity to use GMO. But to me, the big problem is not only that Europe is limiting itself, which makes sense. You don't want it. They also, because they let the NGO dictate policy all over the world, they prevent Africa to use GMO. And to me, that is the biggest crime. Because it's not that Europe limit what they do, they also affect other people. And the food and climate crisis are really bad. My feeling is this, what really is happening, it may think I'm crazy, that there is science, and then what happens, there are environmental beliefs. Some of them are correct, and some of them are correlated to science, but some has nothing to do with science.
Yeah.
Like we have in the US a new Secretary of Health that basically belongs to this type of thing.
Yeah.
So to me, we have a global crisis of lack of trust in science, and I think in Europe it's at its biggest level.
Okay, so then how does the EU, and just winding up as this will be our last question, how does the EU approach biotechnology and agricultural technology better? What needs to be done in order to I mean, we've talked about a lot of problems, talked about some other benefits that are being found in different countries. But very quickly, how do you think that the EU can approach this differently?
The procedure of the EU are problematic, so it's a political issue. But in my view, there are two things that will need to be done. Number one is to move from a precautionary principle that is risk-based regulation to benefit risk. If something has a big amount of benefit, you have to take it. That's what happened with medicine. You know that when you use a vaccine, certain people will suffer. But people prescribe vaccine. Without the vaccine, we wouldn't solve the pandemic. So we need to move to benefit risk regulation. The other thing is you have to allow to have a regulatory system that have some time limit. You cannot ask people to invest in new industry if they don't know when they will get the license. So to me, these are the two main directions that the EU can improve its operation.
Brilliant. Well, David, I wish we had more time to discuss it because it's a fascinating topic. But thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking me. Yes.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.